G'day and welcome to the Hunting Connection podcast. My name is Zach Williams and I am your host. Here we'll connect you with hunters, fishers and outdoor enthusiasts from around the globe. This podcast will share hunting and fishing stories, including past experiences, and tackle the tough hunting stereotypes our community faces. We hope to be a positive influence to those outside the community while also having a laugh along the way. Hope you enjoy the podcast. G'day and welcome to another episode of Hunting Connection podcast. On today's episode, we've got a repeat guest, Kate Fantinel, or otherwise known as Lady Liberty. How are you going?
Hi, Zach. Thank you for having me on again. I know my last episode caused a bit of chaos for you, so it's a pleasure to be back.
No, that's good. It's good to have you back. As with what you're doing, like we said, we just come off of a live recording of your podcast, so that's counting this as part two. But you know, when you're doing lots of good, you're bound to get some hate back as well. So
comes with the territory. We try our hardest. We still have our critics, but we're still fighting the good fight.
100%. So, yeah, a lot's been going on since you were last on. You know, we've had the bow hunting ban in South Australia come into effect. We've had all of this stuff in WA go on. You know, you had a brief stint up in Queensland and back down to South Australia for now, and you've got lots on your cards for the future. So let's kick off with what's happening in Western Australia. In your best words, describe what's happened, what's happening, and what the future looks like for Western Australia.
Yeah, so I lived in WA for 4 years and I left in March last year to head up to Queensland to join the Cataboys in the trenches there for a brief stint. I am heading back to WA. It was always my intention to return. I'm still registered to vote there. That is my home, even though I'm currently in South Oz at the moment. So ever since I left Western Australia, things have just gotten worse and worse and worse for shooters and hunters. I'm sure a lot of your listeners have been following what's happening with WA's gun laws. They are due to come fully into effect in April, where we have limits on the number of guns we can own. The storage requirements, 10 mil saves for if you own more than 2 handguns. Private medical information must be shared with the police as part of your application process. It's just gotten to the point now where they're making it so bloody hard to keep and own guns in that state that I can hardly bear it. So I was in talks with a few minor parties to run in the WA state election in March. The election is on the 8th of March and everyone cannot wait. I was going to run against Police Minister Paul Papalia in Secret Harbour. So I had the support of a lot of the minor parties there. I was going to run as an independent and stick it to him because he is the one who has written these laws in conjunction with the police there. He's turned that state into a total police state. He is a fascist by the literal definition of the word. He is everything that I abhor as someone who values liberty. So I was very keen to run against them. Unfortunately, I do not have the support of the leading and the largest shooting organisations in that state. And I'm talking about the Western Australian Firearms Community Alliance, which is run by SSAAWA. Shooters Union also no longer support me either. So I had to take that into account. And when I ran for the Senate in 2022 in WA, I didn't have the support of them either. And it's very hard and almost impossible to run a successful election campaign against a sitting minister, a high-profile minister, when you don't have the support of your own community. They are the ones with the money. They are the ones who can reach more people than you and I can with our shows. And to not have the support of those men in those organisations, I couldn't put myself in a position where I would be fighting against the police minister, the Labor commie government, and my own community. So unfortunately, I could not run in that seat. And I'm devastated personally and professionally because I think I could have given it a real hot go, and I would love nothing more than to topple him, because he does not deserve to be there. He is not a leader. He is a dictator. He has destroyed the lives of so many Western Australians, especially our shooters and hunters. He went after the veteran community first with his long-range rifle ban, disarming veterans who served our country, took those guns off of those poor men who have contacted me and are absolutely devastated. So I really wanted to run, and I'm devastated that I can't. Since that's happened, and that's all been in the last few weeks, I've been very busy, I have started a legal action fundraiser because I've been in talks with lawyers who believe that the new gun laws can be challenged in the courts. My lawyers, and I have a King's Counsel, which is one of the highest lawyers you can get, is looking at the laws and will identify areas where shooters can challenge the laws in the courts. I am looking at WA Supreme Court challenges. There is another fundraiser out there that is looking at High Court constitutional challenges separate to mine. I am talking to him as well. He also did not have the support of the shooting organisations, so that's disappointing again. So it's coming down to individual people who are motivated and who are passionate to do what we can to help shooters individually, because we cannot rely on shooting organisations. And I do not believe that there is a political solution anymore. It will take at least 4 years of the new government, and I suspect it will still be a Labor government, by the way, because the swings that are required to unseat them is just impossible. You would have seen Premier Mark McGowan with his 90% approval rating. There's only 2 Liberals in the lower house there. It's not going to turn this time around. So I have dedicated my time and energy and passion and expertise to work with these lawyers and the King's Counsel so that I can provide shooters with real legal advice on how to challenge these laws in the courts. We want to flood the courts. When the laws come into effect on the 1st of April and in their entirety, I want the courts to be flooded and a judge to sit down and make a decision and say, this is where they've overreached. This is not legal. This is outside of your powers of parliament. That's what we need to do now, because there is no political solution in WA.
Yeah, you've touched on a lot there. I can feel your passion. I feel the same against our Deputy Premier Susan Close with the bow hunting bans that she's brought into place. My question is, when it comes to the legal side of things, how do you go about that? How can you legally protest, well, not protest, but go against these laws through a court, because it is something that has been discussed here in South Australia with the bow hunting ban. How do you go about something like that?
Well, the first thing missing, and I'm surprised that the organisations, well, I'm not surprised anymore, but I'm disappointed that there has not been any legal advice sought to give shooters guidance on exactly what we can do to challenge them. Everyone's very upset. Everyone knows that these laws are not fair. The gun limits, limiting us to 5 or 10 guns, it's not an explicit ban, it's banned by aggregation. And that's something my lawyers have said is without the power of Parliament, they cannot do this kind of thing. The medical information as well, and there are clauses in there relating to physical ability. This is human rights stuff. You cannot discriminate based on physical attributes. That is the law. So that's another area my lawyers are looking at. The problem is no one has paid for this advice, and it is costly. So I've started a GoFundMe to try and raise enough money. It's about 30 grand. The other fundraiser raised 30 grand. So that's a good sign. It costs a lot of money, especially when you have a King's Counsel, which is a high-profile lawyer who is going to take the time to look through this and identify where we can actually challenge the law in the courts. Without this information, we're flying blind, right? And shooters just don't have the money to be able to get this information by themselves. So I'm doing it as a public service. I feel it's my duty, especially because I'm not running anymore, and I'm disappointed that I can't, because I do have lots of individual shooters who would have supported me, and I'm sorry that I've let you down. But when you're up against the establishment, and this is what it is, the shooting organisations are part of the establishment. They were the ones sitting at the table negotiating our rights away with the terrorists in government over there. They are the ones who have put mandatory club membership as a condition of owning guns in that state, similar to what they've done in Queensland, which happened after 96. They have done everything they can to protect their organisations and not protect the people. So I've taken a leaf out of our friends in America in their book. Whenever laws come up that challenge the Second Amendment, they are straight to court. That's what they do. That's what the organisations do there. I don't know why we haven't got that culture here in Australia, because we are still a liberal democracy. We still have the courts and the judiciary, which is separate to the parliament. I know that judges are appointed by the government. I don't like it either. But when a judge is presented with the facts, they have to rule based on the evidence. I'm getting my lawyers to put together exactly where we can challenge this. We're looking at property letters too, because that's another big one. We're looking at the limits on the number of shooters you can have on your own property now, because that's a huge one. That's going to affect, I've spoken to landowners there. They're horrified at what this could mean for their properties, right? So I'm trying to get this information, and I will get this information. I've also waived my liability as the client. I'm going to make this public. Usually the information only goes to the person who's requested it. I've already waived that with my lawyers and said, I want to share this with as many shooters as possible, because I want as many shooters as possible flooding the courts. We can't wait for Parliament, who will take at least another 4 years to look at these laws. It's not going to be the first thing they care about when a new government forms, right? That is not, they've got other issues to deal with. Firearms is not their priority. We need to make it a priority, and we do that by using the court system that we all have access to. We're all equal under the law. Let's challenge these laws, put it before a judge, and that's how we win.
Amazing. How do you think Western Australia got to this position where you've got someone like the police minister being so anti-gun when he's a veteran himself?
I think it comes down to the ideology of the person and the party. So the Labor governments and the Labor Party, they are socialists. If you look at their statement in all of their documents, they are socialists. And what does that mean for gun owners? They only want the police, the military, and their elite security guards to own guns. That is what socialists want. So it's not a surprise. I know people were a bit surprised in WA. They voted at the last election in 2021. That was purely about keeping the border closed. And the Labor government at the time, that's what they promised. They did not mention anything at all, anything about changing the gun laws. That came after. So I think we've gotten to this point where you've had an absolute majority in WA with the Labor government for the last 4 years. They've used that opportunity because they have the power to ram through legislation. They've done things in a day that usually would take months of work. It's become a total one-party state. And when you have a one-party state and they're socialists, this is what you get for gun owners. So people shouldn't be surprised, but a lot of people are, because they didn't realize it would go this far. But this is what happens when you give people whose ideology is not aligned with liberty, this is what they do. And Police Minister Paul Papalia as well, he's Italian, and it's a fascist ideology. And I mean that in the literal definition. I'm not a lefty blue-haired person screaming that Trump's a fascist. I mean that Papalia truly believes that everyone should be working for the good of the state, not for the individual. And for the good of the state means we don't have guns, because if the people have the guns, then we can challenge them when they do these kind of crazy laws. So that's why I think it's gotten to this point. And that's why I don't believe there is a political solution. We have to use a judiciary and take it to the courts.
So what can happen with the court system, taking it to court? What's the outcomes that you hope to see? Just stuff turned around, or do you reckon there will be, people stepping down? What's your thoughts on what's going to happen?
So some things that could happen is, because I'll be making this advice publicly available, the government, which we expect will be a return Labor government, can look at that and change the laws before it gets to court. I call that a win, because we are forcing them to change the law, because they know, and their lawyers will know, that they won't win. So they can change the law. Tick. That's something the shooting organisations have not able to achieve. So that's one of my hopes. If we do get to the point where we are taking it to court, as many shooters as possible can take up that case individually, and we can get a ruling by the judge in the courts, which will also change the laws, and the shooter who takes it to court can be offered compensation. So there are two things that I'm really positive will happen. I am grateful and happy that there is another fundraiser who is looking at high court challenges. So that's constitutional things. I have been advised by my lawyers that they don't think that's successful. And we saw this during the pandemic when Clive Palmer took the WA government to court over the closed borders, because in the Constitution, we have a right to travel between the states and territories. The High Court ruled that during a state of emergency, we no longer have those rights. So I'm not confident that the High Court challenge will succeed, but I'm really glad that there's a shooter out there who is working on that, because we need all the attack angles covered. At the moment, everyone, the shooting organisations, everyone is focused on the election as if that's going to change things overnight. It's not. The laws are going to be law come April. We have to use every possibility we have, and I see the courts as the next step.
So, after our last podcast, I posted it on a few of the Reddit subreddits, the Hunting Australia ones and all of those, and we got a bit of hate for the episode. Why do WA shooters see you as such a threat, do you think?
Well, I've been really humbled by the support I've received from individual shooters on the ground there. When I was living there, I went to so many ranges and clubs, went out, tried my hand at shotgun again, even though I'm a shit shotgun shooter. So people on the ground are receptive to me, and I've had so much support. I mean, my Senate campaign, I raised $3,000 in a week, and that was just from shooters wanting to support me. It is more the men in the establishment and the people who have been entrenched in those positions representing the organisation that have a problem with me. And I think it's because I'm finally saying what other people are thinking. We have been let down by our shooting organisations time and time again, to the point that it's gotten to in WA, where we're seeing gun confiscation, we're seeing mass disarmament, we're seeing our veterans disarmed, we're seeing limits on private property, we're limits on what we can do on our own properties. So I think that the individual shooters, especially our generation and younger, have gotten to the point where we have to be the ones responsible for our own future. And perhaps I get a bit of flack because I'm saying what people are saying privately and I'm saying it publicly. That's because I've been in a position in my life where I've worked with these organisations. I worked for SSAA National for 5 years. I worked for Senator David Leyonhjelm in politics. I've worked with the Catters. I've worked for Shooters Union. I know all the people. I've been in the rooms when I've heard these conversations, and they still don't support me. So there's no loyalty anymore. My loyalty is to the people of Western Australia, the shooters and the hunters who have been let down. So that's what I'm doing. And I hope as many people as I can. I've already raised about $10,000. So I'm so grateful. And that includes people from other states, right? Because everybody knows that all the other governments are looking at WA and they will pick those laws up and transfer them across to the next state. You will naive to think that that's not going to happen. It might not be next week. It might not even be next year, but it is coming. We need to stop it at the source. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I need as many individual shooters on my side as possible, because I'm doing this. I don't get paid by anyone. I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm a one pony show. I need all the support I can get, and I'm doing it for you. I want the people to know what our options are, instead of being told time and time again we have to rely on a political solution. No, we don't. We have the courts available to us. I've got lawyers who are on our side, a King's Counsel who will never get appointed as a judge after this, by the way. They're taking risks too. Firearms is not a popular topic of law that lawyers typically want to touch. It's because I've done the work with people on the ground, building coalitions, forming those community and relationships so that we can be on the right side of history and stop this.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, especially from someone like myself, as we discussed on your live podcast earlier, someone that has a hate of politics and politicians, as I do. It's just absolutely crazy. Do you feel that these shooting organizations, do you think it's because they're either run by a bunch of old timers who have no reasons to still be in their positions they are? Two, do you think it's got a bit to do with sexism and that as well? And three, how do we move forward and get a better organization to work through these issues?
I think the biggest problem has been that people get into these roles and positions representing the organizations, and then they go on and represent their organizations to protect the survival of that instead of what is right for the people. An example of this in WA is that they have made mandatory club membership as part of a genuine reason to keep your gun. So they've made hunting almost impossible. So they're funneling people into clubs, and that came at a suggestion by the shooting organisations themselves. So that's a classic case of follow the money. Who benefits in that? It's not us. We have to pay another club membership fee. Even if we don't want to be in a club because we want to keep our guns, we can't get a property letter. So what do we have to do? We have to join one of their clubs. It's all about protecting the organisations instead of representing the people. There was nobody sitting at the table in those meetings with the police minister and the chief police commissioner who was sitting there advocating for individual rights. All of those representatives were from organisations who were looking at how do I protect my organisation and whatever self-interest I have in making sure that survives. This is what I mean by the establishment. They have gone to the table with the government and done dirty deals, secret deals to protect themselves, and we are the ones who lose at the end of the day. That's the culture that's happened in Australia. And it's not just WA. I've seen it in other states too. They are not there representing us. I care about the people, they care about their organisations. I don't know if it is about sexism because I have been so well respected by a lot of people in WA and around the country. But when it came to WA, and especially when I ran in the Senate, when I contacted SSAA-WA, they didn't even bother replying to me because I asked for help, right? I was running a pro-gun campaign, going to the police minister's office and holding up a sign, give gun owners a fair go. They didn't even return my calls. And I work for SSAA National. It's not like I've come out of the woodwork and don't know what I'm talking about. I'm a pistol shooter. I'm a hunter with my dad. This is my culture. This is my tradition. So I would love to find out why they're treating me like this, and it is a bit more of a boy club in WA, but at the same time I'm working with the Western Australian Shooting Association right now who are looking at the election and trying to identify candidates and parties to help, and they're asked for my advice because I know who the right people are and I'm willingly helping them, and they're so grateful and they're so respectful. And so that's not about gender either. So I try not to think about it because it's something I can't control. I can't help, and I don't want to transgender or anything. I'm happy with who I am. So I don't really know what else to tell you about that, but I'm hoping that it's not about sexism because we've got a big enough fight on our hands to worry about who's the one speaking and calling politicians out, right? I'm just trying to be the voice for individual shooters who haven't had a voice, are not being listened to by their organisations, and to give people hope. The mood in WA is dreadful at the moment. People are devastated. I even heard today someone said that they think one of their mates is at a real risk because of how it's affected him mentally. That is devastating. This is the real life effects of big government and shooting organisations not standing up for us. I would be devastated if one life is lost because of this. So that's why I'm going down this legal action path to give people hope. We need hope, and we need people doing everything we can within their power to bring that hope back to it and defend our sport, right? You spoke about it on my podcast just before. This is our hunting traditions and culture. This is Australia. This is what we do. We're not going to be told by governments anymore that we can't just because they don't like it. We need to unite and fight where we can.
So with a lot of stuff going on in WA, you've got all these fishing laws that, fishermen aren't too happy with. My parents just got back from travelling WA. They retired, and they just did a caravan trip up, spent the last year through WA, and they said that, the national parks were very poorly looked after. Everything was overpriced, like national park camping, like, all the better stuff was all privately owned stuff, and indigenous run areas as well were the better places than the national parks. Me, myself, especially of recently, I hate everything to do with national parks Australia wide. I see it as a way to lock out people, and it's a lot of poor mismanagement of resources and areas. Massive bushfire risk zones because you can't collect firewood, and people out camping, they're collecting wood for their fires, so it reduces the fuel load. So WA seems to have a lot of things that are going against the parliament, like the people that are in government at the moment. So how do we get all of these people to work together? So, fishers, fall drivers, hikers, caravanners, campers. One of our mutual friends, he also suggested, I'm not going to say name. He know who he is. You'll know who he is. But he spoke to someone who was a sex worker, and she had no real thoughts on firearms. He took her out shooting, changed her mind. That's another community that we could work together. We help them do what they want to do. They'll help us get the numbers that we need and what we want. Together, all of these different, even like the pro weed side of things. A lot of shooters are anti-weed and all of that stuff. But this is numbers that we could use against the government. If we teamed up with fishermen, if we teamed up with campers, if we teamed up with farmers, if we teamed up with pro weed people, if we teamed up with sex workers, we could have the numbers to make some great change. So how do we get all these people working together?
One of the disappointing things that happened in WA is that the WA Farmers Federation there threw recreational shooters and hunters under the bus in order to do a deal with the government. See, this is what happens again. You have these men, usually, I'm not meaning that to be a sexist thing, they are typically men, and their whole thing is to protect their organisation. So they're happy to throw recreational shooters and hunters under the bus in order to win something for their farmers. And a good thing out of the gun laws, probably one good thing, is now farmers can have Category H firearms for putting down wounded animals. That's fantastic. That's something Queensland has had for a long time. So that's one good thing that the farmers managed to get for their organisation. But that came at a cost of sacrificing our rights and what we do so that they could win. And that's what happened. That's why I also don't like politics either, because it's wheeling and dealing, and the person who loses at the end of the day is you and me. I think the other problem that we have is that we and the shooting organisations generally have done a woeful job of bringing the community on side to understand that what we do is a public service, that we are nothing to be scared of. The gun crime stats in WA from licensed firearm owners, minimal. Barely rates a mention, but they're using that in the media as a scare campaign to try and make the general public, who have probably only seen a gun on TV because it's so hard to get bloody access to guns or go out and try shooting, they've made air rifles Category D now in WA. An air rifle is a great entry-level firearm to use. The SSAA used to take their air rifle range to the Perth show. Now it's Category D. So until we do enough work, and this is why I respect you and other podcasters in our industry, especially Aussie Reviews, I can't speak highly enough about him, is trying to educate the general public about what we do so that when it comes to elections and when there's big fear campaigns, at least the general public are smart enough to go, but I know Zach, he's a hunter, he's a good bloke, I'm not scared of him. Why are they portraying him like that? I'm not going to vote for Labor because of that. That's not a good enough reason. That's the kind of work that needs to be done outside of the organisations now, and that's how we can all manage to get together and be on the same side. When enough of us value liberty and value our firearms and value going out to national parks and value fishing and understand that that is a natural activity Australians have done for generations, that's when government can change.
Yeah, it's, speaking of Aussie, I recently had him on the podcast. I think it was the latest episode to air as we're speaking currently, so it will be a couple episodes ago when people listen to this. But he said something that really made me think about the way we do things, and that was helping with campaigning with your local people, like representatives. So whether it's Shooters Fishers Farmers Party, whether it's the Libertarian Party, whether whoever you're voting for, he made a really great point that whenever you go down to these voting booths, it's always Greens and Labor and all of that. They've got plenty of people there handing out pamphlets, wearing shirts, all of that, chatting to people. What you never see is people from the hunting, fishing, shooting, outdoor recreational users out there supporting. So that's definitely something that I've taken into consideration and something that I'm going to try to do. I've had the candidate for the Shooters Fishers Farmers Party down here on the podcast, and I'm following along with what he's doing, and I'm offering and everything I can do to help. And when it comes time, if he gets on the ballot paper, I'll be down there in Shooters Fishers Farmers Party stuff, helping out. And I encourage not just people in South Australia and WA, but every state. It's a day out of your life, do what you can for the community.
And I think that we've gotten to this point because we're such a private community, but that's been to our own detriment. So we're not out loud and proud like they are in America. I love the Americans because they value liberty and they're not afraid to put their views out there because they have free speech and they know they're not going to get in trouble for it to begin with. But because it's their culture and they will defend that until their last breath. Come and take it. That is their mantra. It's so sad to see in Australia this culture of hiding what we do and being almost ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm glad you told me the story about taking goat heads to school in your youth. I remember I drew a picture of me and my dad hunting, and I got told off a little bit for that because he's a very private person. And it's like, no, Dad, but this is how you educate your classmates, that this is a part of Australian life. And it's hard to do that when nobody wants to talk about these stories because we've almost been beaten into submission, that we're too scared to talk about it because gun is a dirty word in Australia. No, they are a part of our life. They are a part of our culture and traditions. We should be able to talk about them. And this is what the lefties and the anti-gun mob are very good at, right? They use emotion and to make us feel bad. I throw emotion right back at them. This is what I do with my dad. It's father-daughter bonding. I have skills for life because of what he's taught me. I'm not ashamed of that. Why are you making me feel bad for my traditions because you don't agree? That's not right. I respect your choices in life. You respect mine. I'm not hurting anyone. That's the end of the conversation. I think we have to be a bit more empowered to talk about what we do. Like you said, bringing in a plate of venison to work is a great one. Taking your friend out to the range, that's where it begins, in the local level. That's how change happens. Like everyone at an election, you're seeing it at the moment in WA. Everyone wants to run to get elected, but have they done the work in their own communities to educate them about why they should support you and value your way of life? If you don't do that, then you're just running for power, and that's not how it should be. Let's make the change where we can as individuals before we go and reach for the highest point.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Like, I've got a little drawing from my oldest up here from when he was about 5 or 6 years old, and it's me and him out hunting deer. Just a little texture drawing up in the hills, and it's been in my hunting podcast studio since he's drawn it. I haven't taken it down. I haven't moved it. So it is something that we need to teach the generations to come, and it's crazy. And a way I've used to explain it to customers and people that are sitting on the edge when it comes to firearms is that the people making firearm laws in Australia have no idea about firearms whatsoever. It's like if someone who'd never driven a car before made all the road rules from watching Fast and the Furious. The only exposure they've ever had to a car is watching Fast and the Furious. So every law that they make has to do with those movies. That's exactly what it's like with firearms in Australia. These people making the laws have absolutely no clue when it comes to firearms. They watch movies such as John Wick and they see, a man shooting a bunch of people with a suppressed pistol or a suppressed rifle, and it's making no noise, and how easy it is to do all this shit, and it's really not like that at all. Like, it just blows my mind.
The other problem that we've had, especially in WA, is that the police have been the ones writing the laws, and that is bad. The Parliament and the politicians are the ones who are meant to write the laws. The police enforce them. In WA, the police were giving the police minister a list of things they wanted. They wanted the high power caliber bans. That's why that was banned. They want limits on the number of guns we can own because they think civilians are a threat to them. It's never been proven to be the case. When you have the police who are meant to be the enforcers of the law writing the laws, this is a very dangerous territory. This is not how a liberal democracy is meant to work. And it's terrifying because they have an agenda too. And their agenda is civilians shouldn't have guns. So that is not the way that a country should be governed. But that's how it is in WA. Terrifying.
So how has that come about? How has it been that the police commissioner, or whatever his title is able to write laws like this? How has that come into effect?
Because it's turned into a total police state. So they've got the ear of the police minister who's happy to give the police whatever they want, whenever they want it. And that's what he's done because the police minister represents the police. He doesn't think he serves the people of WA. He doesn't think he serves the firearm owners. We saw that during the consultation period, right? They did not change any of the laws after so many of us wrote in submissions. I wrote a submission outlining my concerns with the law and where it should be changed. Not one thing was changed as part of that consultation process. It's a total dictatorship where the police have all the power now. It's turned into a police state. They now have laws in WA where they can stop and search people without a warrant. They can want people for weapons. They have KPIs. The police have KPIs on how many people they stop and search per day. That's one of my concerns about the gun rally that we were speaking about before, is that it's being held in an area where police have the power to stop and search and wand people without a warrant. It's also under mass surveillance. The police are going to be there taking pictures of attendees. They will use it as an information gathering exercise to compile a list of individuals who attended, and they will be the first ones whose doors get knocked on April 1st if you've owned more than 5 or 10 guns. I'm very concerned about the rally. We spoke about it briefly before. I was asked to be the MC and I was involved in the initial planning. They did not take my advice about putting it in a private venue where we don't have to have the police. We can have our own private security if we feel we need to, where we can have a safe space for attendees to come and go and not worry about any potential repercussions from the police, because it is a police state. That is why I've been so against the rally, because I do not want individuals going along because they feel it's the right thing to do. It would have been great to do this a year ago. It shouldn't be a month out from the election in a place where police have all this surveillance power that they can wield against us. Not to mention the fact that there will be Labor commie plants or plants by the police who will be in there to deliberately cause a scene. I wouldn't be surprised if they send someone in there dressed in the craziest outfit, potentially holding a fake weapon. Who knows? This is the kind of scene it is in WA at the moment. They will do anything to weaponize the media against us. And then next minute, the front page will be gun owner rally, crazy gun nuts wanting their guns, but we're not going to get the public on side with sympathy if that's what's going to happen. And that's what I'm concerned about. Rallies are meant to elicit sympathy from the general public to get them on side. You can't do that in the current way it's been organised.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Like you mentioned that your idea was to have it in a private area. So if you have a rally in a private area, is it going to actually do much? Like, because like I said, I think the way to it is to do a big rally, public space, lots of media coverage if everyone's doing the right thing. And that's one of those things. And if you're getting police plants and government plants in, doing the wrong thing to make shooters and hunters look crazy, that could be really bad for it. But like we seen in the chat, there is 90,000 registered firearm owners with, what was it, 330,000 firearms. If you
350,
yeah, 350,000 firearms, and for there to be that many legal firearms in the state and next to no criminal activity from the legal firearms, that's amazing. So if you had every single one of those 90,000 firearm owners say, hey, we're not handing in anything, we're not doing this, like, you're not taking them, we need to rediscuss the laws, like, this is affecting us, and it would only work if everyone done it, because it's going to tie the police up and the courts up and everything else. They can't take 350,000 firearms from 90,000 people. It would just never work. So, but it's, I don't recommend doing this if anyone from WA is listening, but I'm just, it's a thought exercise. We've got the numbers, and then if we combine with other organizations and other communities, we can really have a change. And that's something on this podcast that we've been talking about lots lately. We've spoke about it with Ozzy, I've spoke about it with Carly, I've spoke about it with Tony from the Outsider podcast from New South Wales. I've spoke about it with the Wild Food Meister. He's doing an amazing thing, and I've just had him on the podcast, and that will be the next episode to air. So it will be aired by the time this episode comes out. But he's done a bunch of Clean Up Australia Day stuff through New South Wales, and they're getting some camera crews there to film it. They've got bins, and they're getting people out there volunteering to clean up state forests to show that hunters and full drivers and fishermen aren't the real cause for all these issues, and we're actually trying to do good. And I'm encouraging him to go bigger with it, make it do something in every other state, and Carly, she's really big on the idea, and Tony from the Outsiders podcast, he's really big on it, and the guys that run the Hunters Campfire podcast, they're big on it for Queensland. So it could make a real change in future. Not saying this year, but it's something that we should all do in the future, whether you're duck hunters, full drivers, spear fishermen, fishers, like whatever. Hold up these events and make it known that you're from these groups of people. If you're a hunter, go out there full camo to go out, pick up rubbish, It's one of those things. We have the numbers, but we just need to work together. And I must sound like a broken record, and I'm probably losing followers because they're so sick of me talking about politics all the time. And, I say the same thing over and over again, but I'm also seeing lots of people rallying against it. So I'm not sure if you've been on Facebook the last 24 hours, but Great Northern have released a campaign to get people to donate money so that they can buy a patch of land to start a national park. And my God, has it backfired in their favor, because we don't want more national parks. We want state forests. We want areas we can go and camp with our families and fish and hunt and full drive. And it has blown up. If you go to their page, it's just every single comment is from a hunter, it's from a fisherman, it's from a full driver, it's from, all these outdoor recreationists are commenting on what they think. And I've had many messages that people are sending emails to Great Northern and all of this above. So they're, that whole go woke, go broke thing that we've seen with Bud Light with their transgender campaign that backfired on them. It's happening to Great Northern with this national park thing. And it just shows you, if Great Northern changed their stance on it, it shows you what numbers can do. If we have this reaction to all these other issues around Australia and we have the numbers, we can achieve great shit for our communities.
I agree. And I think it's a timely reminder to Great Northern, which is disappointing because I don't mind their beer. So it's sad to see they've gone down this route. But the problem with national parks is when it's not owned by anyone and it's just for the bureaucrats to manage, that's when things don't get looked after and nobody takes pride in it. And no one can go in there and do the activities that need to be done without a bureaucrat approving it first. It is not the way that we should manage our great lands. I'm a big believer in private property ownership. People own the land and they can run it how they see fit. That's why I'm so angry about the WA laws over there now, that if you own a property and you want shooters or hunters to come onto them, you have to register your property with the state. You have to give them coordinates of your property. They get to assess how many pests might be on there, and then they can dictate how many shooters you can have down to what caliber of gun that they can use. This is total overreach by the government. It is not the government's business to be telling a private landowner how they can and can't manage their property. As long as they're doing it safely and they're managing what they need to manage, why would the bureaucrat have any right? The fact is they don't have any right to do that. It's total overreach, and it's going to backfire and cost farmers a lot of their livelihood. So I agree with you, Zach, that it's gone too far in this country, and I'm glad to see that the hunters and outdoorsmen are flooding Great Northern's inbox, because that's how we make change. We be as loud as we can, and unfortunately, I don't think the rally in WA is a way to do that. We have been very loud over there. We had 32,000 people sign a petition, the biggest petition ever put forward to the Parliament, saying we do not like these laws. That's huge. We have been making a lot of noise. So I don't think a rally a month out from the election in a place where WAPOL can use it to wand and gather information is going to be effective. And I just don't know what it's going to achieve. They know that we're angry. They know that we're upset. I don't think that a rally, remember 96, the big news out of that was John Howard wearing a bulletproof vest. That didn't help us either. He made us look dangerous. This is the kind of thing politicians do, and the media over there is complicit. So I'm just very concerned. If people are going along, just be very careful and know what you're getting into. And I haven't seen if any speakers have been confirmed either. So that's the other thing. People are too concerned about speaking because of the venue.
Yeah, it is one of those things. If you are going, be respectful, dress well, don't have any pocket knives, don't have anything, don't do anything to give anyone any ammo when it comes to these things. Look, like, you know, we just seen that the Queensland Firearms Expo or whatever it was has just been cancelled. We need more of these outdoor expos that aren't charging an arm and a leg to have stalls, but we need it to be public, you know, the public being able to go through, like the Mansfield Hunting and Fishing Expo, where the focus is on food and culture and butchering and all of this great stuff that comes along with it. And, you know, just the camaraderie and the community. And, like, it was such an amazing atmosphere at the Mansfield Hunting Expo. And, you know, they were serving smoked venison cheeseburgers and hot dogs and all the butchering demonstrations on stage in the main street. Like, it was just absolutely incredible. We need more of this stuff. And, you know, being in Western Australia, you've got people like Jason Spencer who could, you know, absolutely kill all these demonstrations if you did something public, but not so much a protest, but just have like a community thing where, you know, they're serving quote unquote wild game. Yes, you can't serve wild game, so you'd have to buy venison, all of that stuff, but, you know, just have these amazing community events that transform that person that's on the fence to being pro hunting and fishing. Whether they do it or not, that doesn't matter. You just need to change their mind on that voting side of things. And, you know, you said, how many signatures did that petition get? 35,000, 36,000?
Yeah, 30. Yeah.
Yes, that's good, but it's disappointing. I'm sorry to say. There's 90,000 firearm owners in WA. That should be double that, because you've got the 90,000 firearm owners that should all sign it. Then you should have their husbands, their wives, their mums, their dads, their brothers, their sisters, their, you know, kids that are legal. Like, it should be over double that. We have the numbers. Like, when any of these petitions come out, it should be your spouse, your kids, if they're old enough, your brothers, your sisters, your workmates, your bosses, everybody should be signing these. You should be taking it to everyone. Sign this. Like, I'm watching you sign it. Like, sign it right now for me. Like, you want a happy employee, you want a happy spouse, you want a happy this. Like, this is stuff that we need our family, our friends to get behind. Sign this now for us.
I think the problem with that as well is people did not want to put their name on a list saying that they are a dissenter of the government. And that's a reality of the situation in WA. If you put your head up above the parapet too much, you are on a list and they're the ones who will come for you first. That's the reality of the situation. And that is so sad to say about Australia. My grandfather came here from Italy to escape fascism and these kind of laws, and to see just how far it's gone in Australia, particularly since the early 2020s, and we saw government just grow bigger and bigger and more overreach from them controlling. It's gotten to the point now where we're not the land of the free like we once proclaimed that we were, and that's why I really think it's up to our generation, the younger generation, to stand up on the right side of history and get our bloody country back, because this is not the country I want my kids to grow up in. It's not the country my grandfather fled Italy for. It's just gone too far. And that's why I'm going down the legal action route, so I can say that this is what I'm doing for shooters in WA. I don't believe there is a political solution anymore. It's so corrupt. It's run like an oligarchy, the establishment over there. It's just terrible. So I'm trying to do what I can for individuals, and that's where we will make the change as individuals.
Yeah, like you said, with this stuff going on WA, it's only time till it spreads like cancer to other states. We're seeing the same with the bow hunting ban here in South Australia. It's private property. They've got no way of policing it, yet it's still got brought into effect. And now you've got these anti-hunters from other states talking about it. People like Georgie Purcell down in Victoria, she's sharing, everything to, there was talks of, having to register an arrow, which is just absolutely crazy. Like, you can't register an arrow.
Next, she'll be wanting serial numbers on arrows.
Yeah, I know.
Has she thought of that? I shouldn't give her any ideas.
No, I think that's already been spoken about. So it's just absolutely crazy. So we need to fight these things like weeds. Spray them before they grow. And we need more like a national organisation that will get behind these things. So what's your thoughts on that? Where are you going with all of this from here?
Well, I'm focused on my legal action. I'm heading back to WA next month. I'm going to be there for the election. I'm still a registered WA voter. That was the last place I lived. I haven't been in more than one place for longer than a month since I left back in March. So I'm dying to get back there and to be on the ground to do what I can. I will still be working on the political solution. Like I said, I'm helping WASA identify candidates who support our mission and want to overturn the laws. So hopefully we can have some electoral sway there. But honestly, I think it'll come down to flooding the courts is where we'll make the most and quickest change. In terms of an organisation, I love Firearm Owners United. I hope our mutual friend gets that going again. The problem is that we don't have the time. It's all the retired older men who've got the money and the time to do this, and God bless them for taking up the fight. But who's going to take over? Who's going to be the ones that fight this for the next generation if you're keeping us out and don't like how vocal we're being, or you don't like what we're saying? We are the ones who are going to live with these laws a lot longer than you. So we need to be the ones. Perhaps Firearm Owners United can get back together. But like I said, when we don't have the time and the money and the resources that these big organizations have, it's really difficult. So I really encourage everyone to be your own advocate for yourself, like Zach does, like I do. We write to politicians, we call them out, we put stuff on social media. We're not afraid of what we do. So that's what we need from everyone. That's how we make change, is talking to our friends and our family, educating people. That's where it starts, and that's how we can save our country in the absence of having a big organization, or like the Americans have, Firearms Policy Coalition, Gun Owners of America. They do it for the individuals. I really hope that one day we have an organization in Australia that is there to protect individual rights and not the organization.
Yeah, I actually got contacted by someone the other week that I'm going to get on the podcast very soon. But he's started a union, Australian Recreation Union, and I think that's his kind of solution to what we're facing. So it could be something, it could be another fizzle out, but I'm hoping it could be something great in the future. So I'll have him on in the near future to chat about what he's doing, and hopefully it's something that will shape the rest of Australia and help everything that's going on.
The other thing I will say, I think there will be a time where we do need political leaders to step up and run. I don't think the time is right now. That's why I've taken my hat out of the ring, because I wouldn't be able to win against the police minister as much as I would give it a red hot crack. I do really think that we should have people who are working on running for politics one day, because we are going to be the ones who are going to save this country. We're almost at the point we need a Trump-like figure to unite us. So I'm hopeful one day, and I'll be there ready to go. I've identified people who would be great in politics, and I'm working with some in WA at the moment because I'm not running. So if you are ever interested in getting involved in politics, I'm happy to have a chat to anybody, but it's all about timing and positioning, sorry. So the time's not right for us yet, Zach. I hope one day perhaps I'll come back and be the president of Australia, and Aussie can be my vice president, and then we'll have our country back. Yeah. But I think there will come a time where we've just had enough. I'm not talking revolution. I'm talking republic, when we have our own constitution. We do that by voting on a referendum on every aspect of our constitution. We don't leave it to the lawyers and the politicians to write. We, the people, write it. And I will be there with bells on when that day comes. I cannot wait to save this bloody country.
No, I reckon we'll leave it on there, Kate. It's been great chatting to you. Was there anything else you would like to add, or send people to the links to donate to your lawsuit?
Yes, so if you would like to donate, please, I need to get up to 30,000 to get this legal advice off the ground. It's on my Facebook page, Lady Liberty-Kate Fantinel. You can find it on there. Even if you don't live in WA, like I said, these laws will spread. I want to stop them in the courts where we can, where it starts. So please, every little bit counts. And if you have any ideas on how else we can save WA, please send me a message. I'm open to ideas. Anything I can do to help, please let me know. And thanks for having me on, Zach. It's such a pleasure to talk to you, my fellow South Australian.
No, it's great to have you on, and just jumping on the number thing again. There's 90,000 firearm owners in WA. $1 each. That's all it would take to help you out. Do you know the national stat for firearm owners? I don't know numbers. I'm not great with numbers, but
when I was at SSAA National, it was over 1 million, and that was 10 years ago now. So imagine what it is now. There's probably 2 million of us.
So yeah, again, 2 million people, 50 cents each, $1 each. We could do a lot with the numbers that we have. Put all these issues aside, whether you're, just a single 22 shot shooter at the range, whether you're a hunter, whether you want full, Second Amendment type stuff. Like I know some people do. I personally do, I wish we could take handguns and have better handgun laws, take them out hunting. It would be so much fun hunting with a scoped revolver. Like this, I don't see why there's an issue to do that. If you can hunt with a long range rifle, why can't you hunt with a short range, handgun? It's the laws are just so silly. But we'll leave that for another discussion. But thank you very much for having me on your podcast. Thank you for coming on for for part 2 on my podcast again. I'm sure this won't be the last time we chat. We need to do one in person, whether it's, live streams, have both yours and mine going at the same time, meet up at a pub or somewhere and have a live stream over a couple of beers while us and a bunch of other people chat about it. So
would love to. Can't wait. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you very much for coming on, and we'll speak soon. Catch you later, Kate.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Hunting Connection Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our discussions and gained valuable insights into the world of hunting, fishing, and the outdoors. To stay connected with us and never miss out on an update, please be sure to follow us on social media, all at Hunting Connection Podcast. We appreciate your support and would love for you to share the podcast with your friends and family. Don't forget to tag us in your hunting photos on social media and let us know about your experiences. Your feedback is invaluable to us, so please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Together, we continue growing and delivering more captivating episodes for all hunting enthusiasts. Stay connected, stay informed, and keep pursuing your passion for the hunt. Until next time, happy hunting.